So this is Government Control of Schools, also introduction of myself for EDL 850. So just kind of the outline of the presentation. So I will introduce myself. I'm Tim Walker. Part 2, we'll talk about government control of public education, so the 3 levels: local school board roles, responsibilities, and personal interactions with the 3 levels of government. And then part 3 will be citations, and then a reflection statement. So personal information, married to my wife, worn her for 16 years. I have twin 10-year-old boys, Reed and Preston. Reed is here on the left, Preston's on the right. And then that is our obligatory COVID dog, Roxy, 2-year-old pit mix. They're polar opposites, which makes for a great balance. When I'm not working, I can be found doing sports, scouting, puzzles, or just being outdoors. Professional experience: I did my undergraduate work at Emporia State, majoring in secondary business education with a minor in math. Graduate work at the University of Kansas with a master's in special education, high incidence. My doctoral work was done at the University of Missouri, Columbia. Go Tigers, MIZ, all the way. I studied, my dissertation was all about social emotional learning in suburban schools, high schools. My teaching experience, started in 2005. I was at Harmon High School in the Kansas City, Kansas School District. Taught business, math, and special education there. Moved over to the Blue Valley School District, where I ended up teaching students with emotional disabilities at both Blue Valley North and Blue Valley Southwest. Finally landing at Shawnee Mission South, where I'm the special education department coordinator and work with students with high incidence. I've coached soccer at all 4 schools that I've worked with ninth grade transition and social emotional learning. So the 3 levels of governmental control. In this section, we'll explore the 3 levels of government control which exert control in the public school system. Working from a broad perspective to a narrower one, we will demonstrate the increases of control, financing, and involvement each level of government possesses over public schools. So our 3 levels, obviously the federal government, state government, and then local governments. So the federal government's role in public education, they have a loose association or influence over public education. According to the Center for Public Justice, they account for less than 10% of the budget. They typically create stipulations, though, for using this money. So you think of Title I money, money for specific programs. There are things that you have to meet or comply in order to utilize this money. They also, through the U.S. Department of Education and this legislative branch, they reauthorize different things like IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disability Act, Section 504, which is for students with disabilities as well, Title I and Title IX. PELSU states that the government has been granted the right to intervene in public education when it comes to instances of equality or potential laws being violated. So this example would be Brown versus the Board of Education. Other than these instances, the power to regulate public education is typically left to the states. However, Harris and PELSU go on to state that the federal government may enact policies, but is unable to force compliance by the states except through the ability to access certain funds. So they can say, this is a policy that we're implementing in order to access the funds to support this policy, then you have to do these specific things. So that's kind of how they leverage their power in that regard. State government's role comes in 2 forms. One being the actual ability to create the budget for education, and the other creating and establishing state boards of education. So the legislative branch of the state is able to create budgets, laws, and delegate powers to the State Board of Education. The State Board of Education is responsible for the certification of staff, curriculum standards, credit requirements, policy creation, and more. That's from the Kansas State Department of Education. The Board of Education role is kind of continued. According to the Kansas State Board of Education, the State Board was created by the legislature to establish guidelines for schools, policies not contradictory to state law, and guide local school boards. These are also elected officials, which translates to them being also influencing state-ran schools to align to their overall view of education. We'll talk a little bit more about that when it comes down to local boards as well. So local school governance, so the major body for controls of schools is a local or community-based school board. Composed of mainly volunteer elected officials, they have become low-hanging fruit for political parties to use to influence public education. Sawchuk also goes on to state that some of the board education influence and power has come to the forefront based on the recent power yielded to the local boards concerning health mandates. Local schools or local governance composes more than half of the school budget. School boards can be a strong point for community pride as well. So most of their money coming in the form of property taxes for school budgets. So the Shawnee Mission School Board. So the Shawnee Mission School District consists of 5 high schools, 5 middle schools, and 36 elementary schools, I think was my counting. We also have 2 specialized programs that house students as well. The board is composed of 7 members, and according to the Shawnee Mission School website, is responsible for policies, curriculum, budget, and hiring the superintendent to help them. They meet monthly at the district office, having both open and closed meetings to the public. They communicate really well. After each meeting, they send emails to teachers and to parents or guardians. I happen to be a parent in the district as well, so I get both forms of communication, and there's no difference between the two. So they do communicate really well. They also have some social media links that they use to regularly communicate. They regularly hear reports from the directors of assessment, human resources, and curriculum to help drive decisions around hiring, data collection and results, and the materials used in school. They work with the superintendent to establish a strategic plan for the district, allowing input from stakeholders, ultimately driving all decisions around equity training and professional development. So this was new. They launched a huge initiative for the strategic plan and had multiple committees and multiple people on those committees to establish the new strategic plan and adopt that as a school board. When it comes to the overall operation of the school board policies dictate timelines, responsibilities for different decisions, and the overall operations of the board at meetings and special meetings. So I didn't really find anything in our board policy that dictated like specific operations, more of like certain things that need to be done by certain times of the year, or things that need to be filed, or just things to do. As far as like how they're done or how some of that's met, it looks like it appears to happen kind of in within whatever department that is or whoever's overseeing that. Overall, I think our board does a great job working with teachers in the district. They listen to people hired to be educational experts and allow them to drive much of the decisions of the school. My personal interaction with the school board is pretty limited overall. However, I do feel like I have some visibility, being that I am a department chair over special education. As far as from the state, when it comes to the state government, I also feel like my interaction with them is pretty limited, except when it comes to due process or compliance issues with IEPs. But even then, I'm still working with people at the school level or district level for that. So those are the references that I've used, and these are my standard correlations. Thank you very much. Look forward to meeting you all.